Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for another installment in my ongoing series where I take a look at various clubs and their record signings that they have made since 1992 and rank them from worst to best. And today it is Premier League Moneybags Chelsea who are up. If you are new to this series, there is a playlist link in the description or indeed on the end screen of this video for you to check all the other episodes out that I've done so far at your own pace, and the criteria is exactly the same as it is for each of the previous videos that I have done in this series. The players are ranked based on how good of a signing they were rather than how good they were or are as players. So if you disagree with me on the basis that you think X signing was better or worse than Y signing rather than X player was better than Y player, because that's not what I'm judging them on. If you go on to enjoy this video, of course, please don't forget to smash that like button in the teeth and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But without any further ado, here is how I would rank every one of Chelsea's record signings that they have made since 1992 from worst to best. 16th. Romelu Lukaku. I thought Kepa Arrizabalaga would always go down as Chelsea's worst signing of all time, but now I think he has been superseded, or underseeded if you'd rather, by Romelu Lukaku. Fresh off the back of two outstanding seasons at Inter Milan, including winning the Serie A title in 2020-21 and scoring 64 goals in 95 games, Chelsea decided to bring him back to the club 10 years after he'd first signed for them for £98 million. Aged 28 and with potentially no sell-on value, he had to make an instant impact, and a goal and a man of the match performance on his debut in a 2-0 win over Arsenal and a brace 2 games later against Aston Villa got him off to the perfect start. Lots of people, including me, thought he would be the catalyst behind a Chelsea title win in 2021-22, but we were proven spectacularly wrong. He suffered a couple of minor injuries that disrupted his rhythm, which led to him losing his confidence and, eventually, his starting berth. Not only that, but an interview was leaked where Lukaku said he wanted to go back to Inter, which he described as home, and wasn't a fan of Thomas Tuchel, which immediately soured his reputation amongst the fans. He did score 15 goals in all competitions, but 2 were against Zenit, 3 were against lower league opposition in the FA Cup, and from September onwards, he only managed 2 goals in the league. Chelsea decided to cut their losses immediately and loaned him back to the Nerazzurri, where injuries have plagued him once again, and the likelihood of him playing for Chelsea again, and for the club recouping anything close to that £98 million fee, is non-existent. He has to come in last. 15th. Andriy Shevchenko. Andriy Shevchenko enjoyed 7 remarkable seasons at AC Milan, where he netted 175 goals in 322 games and won the Serie A title, the Champions League, and the Ballon d'Or as one of the best strikers of his generation. Former Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich had wanted to buy Shevchenko for a while, although incumbent manager Jose Mourinho didn't think it was necessary given the presence of Didier Drogba up front in his 4-3-3 system. However, as was so often the case, the Russian got his way and signed Shevchenko in 2006 for just over £30 million, which was a British transfer record at the time, but he was aged 29 and, like Lukaku, had to start well. Suffice it to say, he didn't. The explosive form of Drogba and Mourinho's reluctance to change his formation led to Shevchenko mostly playing out wide or being reduced to a role off the bench, limiting his impact and destroying his confidence. He only played a full 90 minutes in the league on 8 occasions and could only muster 22 goals in 77 games in all competitions, with just 9 of them coming in the Premier League. A loan move back to AC Milan in 2008-09 failed to reignite his spark, and the following summer he returned to his first club Dynamo Kiev on a free. A transfer that didn't make any sense at the time and makes even less sense with the benefits of hindsight. Shevchenko is lucky that he doesn't come in last in truth. 14th. Kepa Arrizabalaga. You could interchange the bottom 3 transfers in this video as far as I'm concerned, and I wouldn't begrudge you with whichever one of them you put in last, but just sneaking it ahead of Shevchenko and Lukaku, partially thanks to his minor resurgence as of late, is Kepa Arrizabalaga. I've spoken about Kepa's transfer numerous times on this channel, including in another installment in this series where I took a look at every goalkeeper to have been the most expensive goalkeeper of all time since 1992, so I'll keep this segment brief. Long story short, Chelsea panic-balled him from Athletic Bilbao for £72 million in 2018 as a last-minute replacement for Thibaut Courtois. He had an okay first season, albeit marred by his refusal to be substituted in the League Cup final, followed by a disastrous second season, which led to him being replaced by Edouard Mendy. Admittedly, he has established himself as first choice under Graham Potter, and Chelsea's defence has been solid enough this season, with Kepa playing a key part. However, his transfer value has dipped dramatically to just £13.1 million according to Transfermarkt, and as a result of that, no club would pay anything close to £71.6 million right now, so he comes in 14th. 13th. Robert Fleck. The first man to cost the Blues more than £1 million in their entire history, Robert Fleck had been a cult hero at previous club Norwich, scoring 66 goals in 181 games for the Canaries and helping them to a 4th place finish in the league in 1989, as well as 2 FA Cup semi-finals. He forced through a move to Stamford Bridge in 1992, threatening to go on strike if he wasn't allowed to leave, and Norwich were therefore forced to accept the Blues' £2.1 million bid. The move wouldn't go as planned though, as Fleck could only muster 2 goals from 31 games in his debut campaign, although in fairness, he did get a chant to the tune of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine whilst at the Bridge. Loan moves to Bolton and Bristol City also proved unsuccessful as his confidence evaporated away, and he returned to Norwich in 1995 with his tail firmly between his legs for under a third of what Chelsea had originally paid for him. His struggles combined with his large transfer fee at the time mean that he would, in perhaps any other club's list, feature much lower than he does, but given the absolute dross that preceded him in this ranking, he's landed himself in 13th. 12th. Pierluigi Casiraghi. A striker renowned for his work rate and aerial ability, although less so for his capabilities on the ball, Pierluigi Casiraghi seemed like a perfect fit for the physical Premier League, and the late Gianluca Vialli clearly felt the same way, signing him for £4.5 million from Lazio in 1998. Like Shevchenko and Lukaku, Casiraghi was in his late 20s when he arrived, meaning he needed to hit the ground running in order to justify the fee, and his arrival did lift the team somewhat, with his bright personality making him a favourite amongst his teammates. However, he would make just 10 appearances for the club and only got 1 goal to show for it, which was a goal more famous for Phil Babbs sliding into the post with his legs wide open, before sustaining a cruciate ligament injury in a collision with West Ham's Shaka Hislop in November 1998. Despite going through 10 operations in a desperate attempt to get his career back on track, he was still walking with a limp nearly 2 years on, and Chelsea decided to collect £4 million in insurance money in 2000, effectively ending the Italian's career. He appealed to the Premier League against the club and the medical team who treated him over unpaid wages and mistreatment, toying with the possibility of exploring legal action. So, albeit not one entirely of Chelsea's own making, it was still a terrible transfer. 11th. Chris Sutton. Whilst at Norwich and Blackburn, Chris Sutton forged a reputation as a decent Premier League striker who was aerially dominant and proficient at bringing others into the game with his hold-up play, and his famed strike partnership with Alan Shearer helped Blackburn to a Premier League title in 1995. In 1998-99 though, just a year after he won the Golden Boot, Rovers were relegated and Sutton could only muster 3 goals. But Chelsea weren't deterred by that dip in form, nearly doubling their transfer record to bring him to Stamford Bridge for £10 million. After scoring against Skonto in the Champions League though, things went downhill spectacularly quickly as he only struck once in the league all season, in a 5-0 win over Manchester United, who had a short-on confidence Massimo Taibi in goal, so it doesn't really say that much in truth. He couldn't fit into Chelsea's style of play and quickly became a laughingstock, something which he said destroyed his confidence and led to him experiencing mental health issues. Thankfully, upon a £6 million move to Celtic the following summer, he rediscovered his goal-scoring touch and got into a better mental state, although it doesn't change the fact that he was a Chelsea flop, with the salon fee alone the only thing keeping him from finishing much lower. 10th. Paul Furlong. In 1991, Paul Furlong was playing for Enfield in the Isthmian League. 3 years later, he had signed for Chelsea from Watford for £2.3 million as a club record transfer no less, following 2 impressive campaigns for the Hornets in the second tier. It was a remarkable rise to the top for the striker, albeit he had actually spent a season in the top flight with Coventry in 1991-92. But he wasn't about to waste his opportunity without a fight. In his debut campaign, Furlong bagged a respectable tally of 13 goals, helping the Blues reach a European Cup Winners' Cup semi-final in the process. However, with all due respect to Furlong, the club wanted to kick on and push further up the table than the 11th place finish that they had achieved in the previous season, and as better players arrived at the club, he became a peripheral figure, scoring just 3 times in 1995-96. Following Gianluca Vialli's arrival that summer, Furlong was shipped off to Birmingham City in a £1.5 million deal, which didn't represent a huge loss by the Blues' standards, but wasn't exactly insignificant for the time either. Perhaps therefore, it's best to treat Furlong as a Chelsea stopgap, someone who could perform well enough for a season before being replaced by better players. And in that sense, he did okay, but not well enough to warrant any higher than 10th. Ninth, Enzo Fernandez. You can absolutely disregard Enzo Fernandez's placement in this video, to be honest, because he only signed as a Chelsea player last month, so it's still way too early to judge him on how good, or indeed how bad, of a transfer he has been. But since he is a club record transfer, he has to feature somewhere. There is an obvious risk with this deal, much like a lot of Chelsea's recent transfer business in truth, because he has been purchased for a British record fee off the back of just 70 senior appearances and tied down to an 8.5-year contract, so the club really can't afford for him to fail, especially from a marketing standpoint. However, he did have a stunning World Cup, winning the Young Player of the Tournament award as his nation Argentina emerged victorious in the final, a game in which he played a vital part, and has looked good in his first few appearances in a Chelsea shirt. Will this move go well? Personally, I think it will, even with the insane finances involved. He has the drive, talent and work rate to make it at Stamford Bridge and justify the fee, and if he can maintain that spot in the centre of the Blues' midfield for the next decade or so, the move will have been a masterstroke. Of course, right now it is still too early to call, hence his spot slap bang in the middle of this list just because I had to put him somewhere. 8th, Fernando Torres. Another transfer I've spoken about a few times on this channel before, Fernando Torres' British record transfer to Chelsea in January 2011 for a fee of £50 million was probably ill-judged given the circumstances, but could also have gone a whole lot worse. Following 2 amazing campaigns at Liverpool, where he was arguably one of the best 3 strikers in the world, injuries had seemed to deprive Torres of half a yard of pace over the previous 18 months prior to his move to London, although he had still hit 9 goals in the first half of the 2010-11 season, including 2 against his would-be buyers. However, he would only score 1 more goal for the rest of the season following the move, and the following year, despite scoring that goal against Barcelona in the Champions League semi-finals, he did also miss an open goal against Manchester United, which seems to have defined his time at Stamford Bridge more than the goals that he actually did score. In total, a low on confidence Torres could only score 45 goals in 172 games for the club, with just 20 of them coming in the league. Despite giving Chelsea fans some unforgettable moments and helping them win the Champions League and the Europa League, he can't rank any higher than 8th, especially since he was sold to AC Milan in January 2015 for next to nothing. Although I do understand the argument that's put forward that says that Torres' goal against Barcelona was worth a £50 million fee on its own. 7th, Kai Havertz. Right now, I think it's safe to say that Kai Havertz's reputation at Chelsea is mixed. On the one hand, he scored the winning goal in the 2021 Champions League final against Man City, which some may argue, much like with Torres, is an immediate payback on the £72 million they paid for him in 2020, and he has shown how good he can be with his touch, technique on the ball, and shot. On the other, he hasn't shown those obvious talents on a consistent basis. He's only registered 47 goal involvements in 128 games for the club so far, 30 off his tally at Bayer Leverkusen in just 150 games, and fans still haven't really taken to him yet, in spite of his Champions League final heroics. That being said, he's featured more as a false 9 than he has in his preferred free role just behind the striker, which has limited his effectiveness, although if 3 Chelsea managers aren't capable of bringing the best out of him, then it's not a good sign. Still aged only 23, he definitely has the skill set to make it to the top, but perhaps a move elsewhere may suit both parties at this stage, and I don't think he's worth £72 million right now. He is showing signs of a renaissance in fairness, with goals in each of his last 3 games as of the time of this recording, and I do actually hope that he turns it around, because he is clearly a talent. But in the here and now, I'm going to put him in 7th, a position that's more of a reflection of what has come before than of how well he has done. 6th, Alvaro Morata. The weirdest transfer in this entire video by a country mile. Alvaro Morata joined Chelsea following a stellar 2016-17 campaign for Real Madrid for around £60 million, in which only Cristiano Ronaldo outscored his tally of 20 goals in all competitions for the club, as Los Blancos won La Liga and the Champions League. Handed the dreaded number 9 shirt upon arrival, Morata actually started off quite well with 8 goals in his first 12 league games, including a hat-trick against Stoke and the winner against Manchester United. The problem, however, was that whilst he was scoring goals, he was also missing a lot of chances as well, with a significant number of them being very scoreable ones, and as his confidence faded, so too did the goals. After November 2017, he would score just 7 more Premier League goals and 13 in all competitions for the Blues, and even a switch to the number 29 shirt didn't do him any favours, as he became a bit part player under Maurizio Sarri and was widely ridiculed for his profligacy in front of goal. However, Chelsea still recouped nearly all the money they paid for him when Atletico Madrid loaned him for 18 months in 2019 with an obligation to buy him in 2020, with the overall fees totalling £58 million. That alone prevents this transfer from being much further down in the list, as without it, Morata would have been yet another spectacular failure in the long list of subpar Chelsea number 9s over the years, and whilst he was on the pitch, he probably wasn't in truth off the pitch. As a result, he comes in 6th. 5th, Damien Duff. It's taken a long time, but we've finally come to the first transfer in this video which I would consider to have been a success, which speaks volumes about Chelsea's scattergun transfer approach during the Premier League era. In Roman Abramovich's first summer owning the club in 2003, the most expensive player they purchased was Damien Duff, as they had to pay his £17 million release clause to get him out of Blackburn, where he had starred for the previous half a decade. Never the most spectacular player whilst at the club, his versatility and work rate made him a fan favourite, although a lot of the attacking flair and spark he showcased whilst at Blackburn was slowly coaxed out of him, especially once Mourinho arrived as manager in 2004. Nonetheless, the Portuguese coach took a liking to Duff and made him a pivotal figure in his team, and the Irishman featured in 88 games in all competitions during Mourinho's first 2 seasons at the club, contributing to 2 Premier League titles and a League Cup. As mentioned, he became more functional than he had been at Blackburn, but he fitted like a glove into Mourinho's system and scored some crucial goals, including the winner in the 2005 League Cup semi-final against Manchester United. He would depart for Newcastle for £5 million in 2006, where his career started to take a bit of a dip, but he is still highly rated, if not outright loved, by Chelsea fans, so I think a spot in 5th seems about right. 4th, Roberto Di Matteo. An energetic box-to-box midfielder with a fierce shot from distance, Roberto Di Matteo had made his name at Lazio under the guidance of maverick coach Zdeněk Zeman, and Vialli brought him to Chelsea in 1996 to the tune of £4.9 million. He immediately became a fan favourite with his tireless displays in the centre of the park, and was one of the driving forces behind the Blues' re-emergence as a constant contender for European football in the late 1990s. During his time at the club, he scored in 2 FA Cup finals, including after just 42 seconds against Middlesbrough in the 1997 final, and the winning goal 3 years later, and another decisive goal in the 1998 League Cup final, as well as lifting the European Cup Winners' Cup the same year. Sadly, his last few years at the Bridge were disrupted by injuries, and in 2000 he sustained a triple leg fracture from which he would never recover, being forced to retire in February 2002 at the age of just 31, having not played for 18 months. Nevertheless, Di Matteo was a pivotal figure in Chelsea's resurgence up the table and into the media spotlight, helping them change from a joke club to a team which was a force to be reckoned with. He would also later return as manager in 2012 and win the Champions League, although of course that has no bearing on this ranking. Everything else that does though means he comes in 4th. 3rd, Michael Essien. Michael Essien scored one of my favourite goals of all time with his absolute thunderbolt against Arsenal in December 2006, and that alone could put him in top spot. But I'm going with my head rather than my heart on this one. Following one of the longest running transfer sagas of all time, perhaps since eclipsed by Manchester United with Jadon Sancho, Wesley Sneijder and Frankie de Jong, Chelsea finally got Essien in August 2005 from Lyon for £24.4 million, where he had won 2 league titles in 2 seasons. One of the finest box-to-box midfielders of the modern era, the Ghanaian became a pivotal figure in Chelsea's squad, partnering up brilliantly with Frank Lampard in the centre of the park. His energy, tough tackling and power when striking a ball from range won over the Chelsea faithful's hearts, and he won everything on offer to him whilst at the club, including 3 Premier Leagues and the Champions League, as well as being nominated for the Ballon d'Or and FIFA World Player of the Year awards 3 times apiece consecutively between 2005 and 2007. Sadly, an ACL injury in September 2008 was the first in a long line of injuries that Essien would suffer over the coming years, and after 2007-08, he would only make more than 22 appearances in all competitions in a single season once for the club. An unsuccessful loan move to Real Madrid, where he was reunited with Mourinho, followed, but after that didn't work out, he was moved on to AC Milan in January 2014 for nothing. He was undoubtedly a Chelsea success in spite of his injuries and worthy of 3rd place in this ranking, but without them, he may well have gone down as an all-time Blues legend. 2nd, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbaink. It's taken until 2nd place, and 8 strikers no less, for us to finally have ourselves a successful Chelsea striker in this video. although it won't be the last. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbaink had previously shone at Leeds, hitting 34 goals across 2 Premier League seasons and jointly winning the 1998-99 Golden Boot before moving to Atletico Madrid, where his goal scoring form continued with 24 La Liga strikes. After failed experiments with Casiraghi and Sutton, Chelsea decided that Hasselbaink was the man to fill the void, signing him for £15 million in 2000. But unlike those two previously mentioned, he more than lived up to the billing. In 4 years at the Bridge, he averaged just under a goal every other game in all competitions, and in his first 2 seasons at the club, he scored 55 goals. He won the Premier League Golden Boot outright in 2000-2001 and was just 1 goal shy of Thierry Henry in the 2001-02 race. And he was the Blues' top scorer in 3 of his 4 seasons, contracted to the club. Although the only trophy he had to show for his efforts was the 2000 Community Shield, his role in helping the club become a genuine domestic and European force cannot be underestimated. He left for Middlesbrough in 2004 on a free transfer, but with his legacy at Stamford Bridge firmly established, and I think he's more than worthy of 2nd place in this video in spite of the lack of sell-on value. First, Didier Drogba. Quite frankly, Chelsea's record signings since 1992 are probably the worst, collectively, out of any team that I've covered in this series thus far. But nonetheless, in top spot, we have an absolute gem of a signing. Didier Drogba. A late bloomer, Drogba's first great season came in 2002-03 for Guingamp when he was aged 24, but after ripping up Ligue 1 for Ligue 1 Compé and Marseille in 2003-04, Abramovich splashed out £24 million to make him Chelsea's focal point up top. Under the guidance of Mourinho, he flourished, with his strength, hold-up play, ability to score any type of goal, and dogged determination making him almost unstoppable when he was at the races, which more often than not tended to be whenever he played against Arsenal. Not only that, but he was the ultimate big game player, scoring in, and winning, every FA Cup final he played in, as well as snatching a late equaliser against Bayern in the 2012 Champions League final before scoring the winning penalty in the subsequent shootout, etching himself permanently into Chelsea folklore. In 8 stellar and trophy-laden years in West London, Drogba bagged 147 goals and made 84 assists, as well as bringing the best out of the likes of Frank Lampard and Florent Malouda. Whilst he only scored more than 20 goals in 2 seasons, namely 2006-07 and 2009-10, the year in which he netted 34 goals and made 15 assists in all competitions, he never hit lower than 13 in a single season. He left on a free following that winning spot kick against Bayern to move to China, although he returned in 2014-15 for one last hurrah, albeit that stint is irrelevant for the purposes of this ranking. But regardless, for those 8 glorious years he spent at Stamford Bridge, he became a Chelsea hero, and as a result, he's a worthy winner of this ranking. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at how I would rank each of Chelsea's 16 record signings that they have made since 1992 from worst to best. If you enjoyed this video, of course, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you want to check out any of the other episodes I've done in the series, I've covered clubs like Barcelona, Newcastle, Man City and Liverpool, with plenty more still to come in the pipeline. There should be a playlist link in the description or on screen about here or so, maybe here, depends on how I format the end screen. But hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my choices down in the comments, and if you disagree, let me know your reasons why. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.